Let's talk about Aisha Huang. Yesterday, she, along with three others, were in court. And of course, her defense lawyer was there seeking bail on her behalf. But the state prosecutor had other reasons why he thought that they should keep them in police custody. And so it came with a lot of confusion as to whether she really fled the country or she was repatriated or deported. Let's listen to the information minister on what he had to say about whether Aisha Huang was really repatriated. And after that, we'll take a look at the state prosecutor and what they filed in court yesterday.
What is on the minds of many people is, indeed, does this person exit the Ghanaian jurisdiction? That's what's on the minds of many people. Now, whether the instrument that was used was a repatriation or a deportation, did she exit the jurisdiction? And I think the answer to that is yes. Exited the jurisdiction on the wishes of the government. And repatriation, in fact, I have cited the repatriation notice or the repatriation order. I've also cited the flight details that were used for that repatriation exercise. I'll share them with you and your producers.
This repatriation notice was issued, revocation of permit and repatriation was issued on the 19th of December 2018, was signed by Controller General Kwame Siatechi. And she was put on Ethiopian Airlines flight ET220, Accra to Addis Ababa, dated December 19, 2018. She was placed in seat 32F and had issued and used gate C7 to board. She had flown economy class and boarded at 11:35. Are these accurate?
They are. I think the facts that you have just narrated show clarity that indeed the order was issued, indeed the steps that were necessary to ensure that she's out of our jurisdiction were followed.
Credit to Joy FM for that voice. Of course, that was Evans Mensah asking the information minister if indeed those details were accurate and she was actually repatriated. And you heard from Kojo Ponkuma. He confirmed and said yes, she was repatriated per the documents that he had cited. And so how is it then that yesterday in court, when the state prosecutor was made to state his case as to why they should still keep Aisha Huang in custody, he continued to say, and I'll read exactly what was in the state prosecutor's file. He says, during the year 2017, the first accused was arrested for a similar offense, but managed to sneak out of the country, averting prosecution. During the early part of 2022, the first accused sneaked back into the country after having changed the details on her Chinese passport. It's interesting that the defense lawyer, retired Captain Efadate, also had some choice words to say concerning this particular issue. And Coco, if you can kindly pull up that video for me while I introduce my guest on what the defense lawyer had to say about the fact that that was a blatant lie. In actual fact, per what he knows, because he was Aisha Huang's lawyer back in 2017 when all this started, when the Attorney General filed the nolle prosequi, he was supposed to go and see Aisha Huang. He was told to hold on and come and see her later, only to find out the next morning that she had been flown out of the country. So she did not flee, but in actual fact, she was, I don't know if we should say deported, repatriated. Coco, do we have the video? Okay, let's listen to that.
I don't want to say that I want to indict Ghana Immigration Service, because any foreigner who comes to Ghana passes through our borders, and each of our borders are manned 24 hours by immigration officers. So immigration cannot tell me that they don't know how she entered Ghana. As far as I'm concerned, there is no legal impediment that bars Aisha Huang from coming to Ghana, because she's a human being like you and I, and she's entitled to freedom of movement. And if only she has a visa, she can enter this country anytime. I was defending her. We were going to court regularly. She was on bail, but she never missed a court date. And we were defending her. She was supposed to open her defense. And then on that day, Attorney General entered nolle prosequi. I don't know why they entered nolle prosequi, but they did it. And then the following day, she was flown out of Ghana.
And that's retired Captain Nkrabea Date. He's a former Deputy Interior Minister, by the way, and he is the defense lawyer for Aisha Huang. In fact, he was a defense lawyer back in 2017. In the studios this morning, I have Nanaya Chimpim Jantua. She is the General Secretary of the CPP. Good morning.
Good morning, dear.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Everything okay?
Under the circumstances.
Under the circumstances, you are managing?
I'm managing.
Oh, okay. Lawyer Joyce Ba Mukhtari is a special aide to former President John Dramani Mahama and also former Deputy Transport Minister. Good to see you.
Good to see
you. It's
you
been a while.
I know, right? I took
Where
a
have you
short break.
been?
You know, try to go and look for some small job somewhere.
Oh, I see. I hope it went well.
Very, very well. Thank
Well,
you.
it's good to have you in the studios. And I'll start off with you, Nanaya. So, based on what the state prosecutor filed, as against what the defense lawyer
You
said.
want to be troublesome.
Oh, I'm sorry. And also what the information minister had said, because he actually confirmed that per the documents that he had cited, she was actually repatriated. Who should we believe at this point?
I don't know. Only God. Because, good morning, Bella. Good morning, Auntie Joyce.
Good morning,
I
sis.
miss you. How are
I know.
you?
How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Good morning to your viewers and good morning to everybody. Bella, I'm confused. And I don't know what to say. Because there's so much, the word is not even coming. Whatever they are saying does not gel. This one says this. There's no comprehension. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't look well. As if the whole system surrounding our security, immigration, there is something wrong. Because how can the state prosecutor, Inspector Eric Mensah, says that she came in around this time, I mean like
Earlier this year,
2022, but she has a card dated 2019 from the National Identification Authority, a non-citizen Ghana card. So how come? What happened? How did she get that card when she was out of the country? What was the use of that card for her? She has been deported. According to records from one section, another section said that she fled. That is why the president said that he is confused. And it is sad that anybody would take a president through this kind of turmoil. That he himself is not sure whether the person stayed, fled, or was deported. And now the confusion is still there. Nobody has cleared it. The evidence in court says that she fled and came back. But the minister is saying something else. There's a deportation paper or a deportation document. The one we've been asking for all along has appeared, and it was signed by the boss of immigration.
The Controller General, yes.
Comptroller General. So what is it? Why wasn't that evidence given in court? But this one, which is like fact, once this is the evidence, I'm not a lawyer, Auntie Joyce is a lawyer. Once this one is filed in, I believe, then it means that that is the truth. That she fled and escaped prosecution and came back. But in the middle of it is an ID card dated 2019. In her own words, she says she came in August 2022. Now we are being told that she came in earlier part. So with all these issues around it, is there something somebody is hiding?
Like what?
I don't know. It is becoming scarier. The inconsistencies are too many. Do you understand? Because now with this new inspector coming on board, he wasn't part of the whole discussion before. Now he's the prosecutor for the case. And now this is what he is bringing up. So what is it? What is it that we don't have to know that it has to be tightly covered up, but for some reason it has gone awry? There is, everything is scattered. What is it?
How is it possible that they're saying she fled? Because we're told that the Attorney General filed a nolle prosequi. Now, if you listen to what the defense lawyer says, he says that when it was filed, he wanted to go and see her, but he was told to hold on and come and see her the next day.
Yes.
So if she was still in the custody, well, per what he's saying, still in the custody of the state, how was she able to flee?
That's what I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Or could it be that at the time when they filed the nolle prosequi, she was already not in the country, which is probably why they filed it?
I don't know. I mean, as it stands now, there's not much I can say. Because with this, I thought that the prosecutor would come and say that she was deported and she came back. And now, because of that, she has to be held tight and no bail. But now another angle has come. The fleeing never came up in the first instance. The issue of she fleeing came up only when the president said that he is not too sure of what is going on. Did she flee or she was deported or repatriated? That is where the issue of fleeing came in. And now this prosecutor has also confirmed that she fled. How did she flee? Who aided her to flee?
Isn't it problematic that the president is saying that he does not even know, he's not sure? Because he had initially said that on hindsight it was a mistake to actually deport her.
Yeah.
Now he comes back and says, now I'm not even sure if she fled or she was deported.
Yes.
That's the president of the country.
That is the point. Before we came here, we were discussing this, that how come that the president is saying this? Inconsistent with whatever has been said before. Who is not telling the president the truth? Who is not briefing the president properly? Because you see, if you're a president, I have not been a president before, but at least I've been a school prefect. And I know that you have people that you work with. And I'm now a general secretary, and you have people around you. And it's not everything that you see. I also have people ahead of me, the chairman, they are there. It's not everything that they see. So somebody would have to brief you, give you some briefing. You will see your own, but you can't see everything. So who is not telling the president the truth? And I think maybe it is time that he stopped talking about his people are doing well and open his eyes to deal with the situation. That if people are not working well around him, then he should try and reshuffle, sack some people, let us know that he is in charge. And also, my brother Kojo, it is not every day that you respond.
But he's the information minister.
It is not every day. When it comes to these things, when there is this kind of confusion, you have to take your time before you come out. Because otherwise, you put your integrity on the line. Because there are so many inconsistencies here. So you need to really get what is true. And even if you have to manage it, you manage it in a way that will not bring any confusion around the
So he shouldn't have spoken at all, even though the media was asking for questions?
No, you see, there's a way that you speak. It is not every day that you have to give information. Even if you say that, okay, I will come back to you, per all the information available, let me do further consultations and get back. Because you see, what he is saying is different from what the prosecutor is saying.
And they both work for the state.
They both work for the state. And once it is a court matter, I'm not a lawyer. Once it's a court, you can't lie in court. Do you get me? So he is filing what he knows, what he is privy to, what he believes or he knows is the truth. The minister too says something else. And now we are pitching the two against each other. Is it good for his image? That what he said is very completely different from what is being said here? It is not good for his image. Clearly not. So it is not every time that you rush to go and defend the president or try to clear up a mess. That is not how you do it. There are times you don't have all the answers. So what you do is that you wait. Because otherwise you don't even let your government look good. What is happening now, we don't know. I mean, nobody knows what the real answers are. We have more questions than we have answers, Bella.
Lawyer, have the security authorities not been truthful in all of this?
Well, a very good morning to you, and good morning, Anaya.
Yes, dear, good
well, morning. I think that these are very, very interesting circumstances, very interesting cases. In any case, where did all this start from? I believe that the president had occasion to speak at a very private interview. I probably believe that maybe he wasn't adequately briefed on the facts of the case as we now know them. I also think that, like he does all the time, maybe he was misled by his national security apparatus. But I am actually under the assumption that, of course, presidents would ordinarily receive national security briefings on matters of this kind. And maybe all he had to do probably was just to reach out and ask someone at least to offer him some assistance. He could even have reached out to ask Kojo Nkrumah, who at least was sitting right behind him, as is normally the case. And ordinarily, maybe this should not raise or generate this level of opprobrium. But naturally, it was bound to. You know, there's a part of my life that maybe a lot of people don't know because we all dwell mostly on this politics. Many years ago, I worked in one of the leading law firms acting for many or most of these mining companies in this country. Takwa, all of the Huni Valley, and all these places were actually almost like my home. I was always there. At the time, I think Takwa had just one hotel, and you'd get there sometimes very late in the night, and you'd probably not find accommodation, etc. So I spent quite some amount of time in those areas. I have been back there for various reasons in recent times, and you have to see the level of destruction of water bodies, of our farms, of just about anything that grows naturally in those areas. Prestia in particular is almost like a dead zone. You should see the water bodies, even around the then one hotel in Takwa, covered in a certain type of sludge, brown, black. You can't tell what it is. Even the leaves on the trees around the place. And everywhere else. And for some weird reason, I saw a photograph yesterday of a community where they are literally digging between people's homes. In between homes. Huge mounds. And the type of equipment you see, the types of, look, go from here right up to Bole Tinga areas. The conversation really now, I don't think it borders more on any legality per se. That is just semantics or nomenclature. Whether or not you deport somebody is a question of law. There's a process that accompanies a deportation order or an order of deportation. There's an instrument of deportation. We haven't had this conversation. Whether someone was repatriated or fled, pretty much same. In any case, if an attorney general or any attorney for that matter, and this terminology, nolle prosequi, is used mostly for criminal cases, where you realize that the person has probably fled or abandoned the system, and you can no longer see any reasonable reason to continue, for example, to prosecute.
That's when you file a
formal termination or notice of termination of proceedings.
When the person may have fled.
Whatever. You can't find the person.
Okay.
You don't know where they are. Because the point is you're prosecuting an individual.
So if the person is still in custody, you cannot file a nolle prosequi?
It means that you are no longer interested.
In the
Maybe
case.
The evidence does not support what you're trying to prosecute them for. Sometimes you notice they even enter a nolle prosequi, then they come back with new facts, a new charge sheet. You know, the criminal process has a way. Because remember that you're dealing with people's rights here or taking away of same. So there's a very lengthy process just to be sure that one, you don't prosecute the wrong person, that two, you don't convict the wrong person, all sorts of things. So we have the nolle prosequi, we have the nolle prosequi acquit, also terminology in Latin that actually defines some of these things. So these are just procedural matters. And then, of course, so you have one individual who is certainly in custody. It has raised all sorts of debates about whether or not the person was repatriated or the person fled, etc. Either of them really does not respond to the issues that we have at hand. And you know, I love my senior Nkrabie Fadate. You have to love him. I mean, he's literally made it a very simple matter.
How so?
Oh, that's the impression he wants to give us. That's the impression he wants to carry. He says that even though all those editorials were totally unnecessary, He doesn't want to blame the immigration service. He believes they do a good job, but yes, we have criminals who always escape their attention.
He's asking them questions that how did she enter the country?
He's almost acting as if he's representing a Ghanaian citizen. You understand? But we also know that Aisha Huang, or whatever she's called, may not be the only person engaged in these activities. I say there are Chinese people mining, whether legally or illegally, everywhere. Even where you see some of the Ghanaians who have these small-scale mining licenses, go and cross-check. The persons behind them, the faces behind these mining activities are mostly foreigners. And I recall that in the last years, under the Mills Mahama administration in particular, this was actually a conversation that was even had with the then Chinese ambassador to Ghana. Because a certain diplomatic face had to be put on this attempt to literally move them all out of the country. Indeed, at the time, even the Chinese government offered to fly its citizens out of here because this whole Galamsey thing had become a menace. And if you remember, there were all these attacks, murders of indigenous persons. And look, they are very, 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 very vicious. There are gangs of them across the country. The sorts of little conflicts that actually take place will surprise even you. And I think sometimes it will be important even to investigate some of these things. But you see, it also brings to light, and every time I remember it with such deep emotion, what happened to that young military officer, Major Mahama. He was caught up in one of these things. I listened to a very interesting stakeholder speak to the fact that these days, most of our security apparatus don't want to go on missions abroad. They want to go on missions to Galamsey sites. Have we asked ourselves why? You know, there's a whole potpourri of issues at play here. But at the end of the day, it is our country. It is for us to determine who is allowed to stay here and how they stay here. And we should also make it a point to find out what they do here. And if whatever they do affects us negatively, then what do we do? You know, I've heard people who have called for literally a moratorium on all mining activities.
I do agree.
In some of those communities, reluctant as we may all be, we ought to agree. We should consider it. Maybe there ought to be a certain debate, a certain conversation about this matter. Maybe we ought to take it to another level. You know, I've always maintained that as a professional, we have so many beautiful legislations. Mining and Minerals Amendment Act of 2015. From then we had the Mining Act from many years ago. We had PNDC laws that actually regulated mining. How have they in any way helped us? How have they ameliorated the challenges to our climate? Look, years ago, I used to be so embarrassed, especially when it came to the resettlement agreements with mining companies. Bella, they used to build these tiny little cubicles as replacement homes for the properties that were destroyed to make way for mining. I have a long history with mining communities. If I start that part of the conversation, we will never finish. And it is not just about the professional in me. It is the unfairness, the inequity. And now it is the impact it is having negatively on us as a people. Are we then going to say that as against what we earn from mining? And there's been these jokes ever since Her Majesty the Queen passed, that they have more gold in their custody than even for gold-producing countries. Should that not be a wake-up call?
But in prosecuting Aisha Huang, and if she is found guilty and is made to, serve time in jail, is that not sending a message, a strong message to the foreigners who are engaged in illegal activities in the country that we will not take that kind of misbehavior anymore?
Do you know how many Ghanaian citizens are languishing in jails across the country for mining offenses? Maybe you should undertake some research. That just convicting that one Aisha Huang is not necessarily a panacea.
So we're blowing it out of proportion?
Not necessarily. Maybe it deserves the attention that it's getting. Maybe it's also a way to stop others. Maybe it's actually to send a warning to all the others who I know are still there. There are many of them. But Aisha is a very established business person. Funny enough, on the day when this matter started, I was with the driver who was telling me about knowing where she operates from in the Ashanti region. She has a supermarket, she has all these shops. She's literally integrated in our environment. And there are these rumors even that she's actually even married to a Ghanaian businessman. You understand? So it is not just Aisha, it is all the others. Maybe this one has gained notoriety because of the circumstance of whether or not she was repatriated in 2018 or whether or not she was repatriated 3 times under the Mills Mahama administration. I mean, how do these change the water bodies?
Is that not because we're not doing anything necessarily about it?
But that's what I'm asking.
Should heads roll?
Do we really want to do anything about it?
Should heads roll?
Is there a commitment to do something about it? I no longer want.
Hold on, Anaya.
I no longer want to make pronouncements on what the current government should not do. I'm sure if President Mahama had spoken about Aisha Huang, I can bet you there will be so many press conferences. The president will certainly have a very good Barbie response, and so will his spokespersons. But of course, when it comes to matters to do with things that bother on the rights of citizens, I'm sure you've heard, in the UK recently, is a long debate about what? Water and its availability over the next few years, about energy and its sufficiency over the next few years. So these are conversations that do not only affect the people in the United Kingdom or Europe, they affect us as well.
But
and
I
even
want to
more
hear
for
from you
us.
because you have been in government before.
Yes.
I mean, in this situation where the president is clearly being told different things at one point in time or the other, don't you think that by this time there should have been heads rolling? Because clearly people are misleading him and he's out there embarrassing himself to some extent.
I don't want to belabor the point. I get what you're trying to say. How many heads have rolled over the years since President Akufo-Addo has been in office? Please.
You don't think it will change?
Nothing will change.
You don't think so?
Certainly not. I believe that President Akufo-Addo is literally a walking basket of inconsistencies, and I don't think that what he says and what he does are literally the same. They are not even related. Like I said, imagine President Mahama had mentioned the name Aisha Huang. All hell will break loose.
Was Aisha Huang arrested 3 times under your government?
Well, that's what they say. I was not Interior Minister, and I know that the Honorable Agaga has been speaking to the matter, so maybe you can ask him. I'm not very well sized with those facts to do with that, but at least I know what is currently before us and what is at hand. And what I think is at hand is that there's a government that has no commitment. That certainly is not interested even in pursuing this matter.
How committed were you back then? Because I know that former President Mahama spoke and says that during his time there were some 5,000 Chinese that were deported. There's been some fact check on that to say that it was just about 1,000. The rest were either repatriated, they left on their own, some fled, blah, blah, blah. But beyond that, how well did we take the fight against Galamsey to ensure that we won't be where we are today?
Give it whatever numbers you want to give. At least you can give credit that an effort was made. Even if it was a 500 number, it was 1,000 of them, it was 5,000 of them. But remember, there was also a blueprint left by the erstwhile administration about how to streamline, how to organize, even in some communities, to stop Galamsey completely.
We've seen that with this government too, have we not?
Oh, please. You see, it's very early in the
There was a
morning.
halt in, entering mining reserves, forest reserves as well. There was Operation Vanguard, Operation Halt.
That young man who lost his life is a man that I knew very closely. And each time we discuss matters to do with illegal mining, it makes me feel very emotional because his life was lost from what? In vain. Left his young children and his young life. Look, the president put his job on the line to fight Galamsey. What has happened? You know, that's what I'm saying. The president is a walking bag of inconsistencies. He says one thing and he does just the opposite. I believe that if there's a commitment, look, we have helicopters. And Nanaya is here. We've seen them use them in other countries to smoke out such activities of bandits and illegal people.
Illegal activities.
They have everything within their power. The National Security Minister is a very experienced individual. Why? We have a whole military retinue. What are they doing?
Recently, there were some speedboats that were dispatched onto the water bodies.
Even because I work largely in the maritime, for example, we even had all of these, the Coast Guard, for example, had partnered the Ghana Maritime Authority. And we had all of these naval boats in our waters because at the time we had challenges with people, the hijackers and all of these activities, especially in the exclusive economic zone. So there's all of these things. There's no effort that has not been made. And like I said, you can decide not to give credit. You can decide to say all that you want to say. But you ought to know that at least under Mills and Mahama, every effort was made, even if they did not necessarily finish it off. But when President Akufo-Addo started this fight against Galamsey, President Mahama at the time offered and recalled even extensively that there was a blueprint, a policy document that had been worked on by all stakeholders, even including some of our very eminent chiefs who hail from those areas where these mining activities are taking place. Look, recently I had a phone call from young guys who were doing a certain, working on a project for me. They had actually been all rounded up at night and put behind police cells because they were suspected to have been engaged in illegal mining. You understand? Even to be able to get the police to grant them police inquiry bail, I had to speak to the chief from the area. Okay. And whilst we are having these conversations, do you know we're still issuing?
We're still issuing
mining licenses?
We still are.
Please cross-check on when the last ones were issued and what dates are on them.
Okay.
You know, sometimes dates are important to settle some of these arguments.
Nanaya, do you think that the president is going to make heads roll at this point? I mean, Lawyer says she's not sure that's going to happen.
Not that I'm not sure.
You don't think
not going to happen.
It won't happen?
No.
She says it won't happen.
But it should happen.
Do you think it will?
It is long overdue.
It has never happened before.
I don't think.
And you know
I believe that he should let it happen because he has been embarrassed. He has been totally embarrassed.
In fact, he should have resigned from the job because he put his job on the line.
He should put his job on. I said it last year. You remember I was here. I said at this point, if it was anything, he should resign. But maybe he didn't even believe in what he was saying. In the same way he didn't believe in when he said that Ghana beyond aid, and the next moment he was taking loans. Did you get me? So maybe he didn't even believe in it. But I'm saying that at this point, it is very critical that something is done. That he should let heads show if he's not going to resign because maybe some of these things, when he says it, he doesn't believe in them. He doesn't even understand what he's talking about. The impact and the ramifications of some of these things that he says. So if he says that he's not going to leave because he said he's putting his job on the line. And look at all these issues that are coming up, all related to Galamsey. Even water, processed water, the price of processed water is going up because I believe that the raw material or the source they are using is unavailable. At a point, if you are not careful, you are going to what? Import water as well, which is a very serious matter.
No, but where are you going to find the resources to import water?
Yes, where are you going to do that? Because everything is going. And now we do agree for the CPP. We've said it is even in our manifesto that there should be a halt to all forms of mining for us to ensure and take a stock of everything that we are doing. This exercise is what? Destroying our environment. Destroying everything that we have. And these Chinese people, they come in droves. We are not saying that they shouldn't come. But when you enter a country, you should do the right thing. You don't enter a country because of an illegality. And we sit here and we also perpetuate it. I do not see how a Ghanaian will enter even Togo and engage in an illegality and go scot-free. No Ghanaian can enter China.
No way.
But we have allowed them to exist. Bella, they don't, when they come in, who takes them to these sites? Who allowed them to enter these forests? Who allowed them to do all these illegal mining? Who is aiding them? The people aiding them are Ghanaians.
Yep.
But also, the Minister for, is it Mines and Natural Resources?
Yes,
Yes,
Lands and
Natural Resources, the young man, Honorable
Abu. Yeah.
There was a conference somewhere, I think in 2020 or 2021. I heard it cost 11.4 million Ghana cedis. Yeah. What happened to it? After that, not even, maybe it's not the conference, but the process. They went around meeting all manner of stakeholders, went to even Menchia, went to all the chiefs. What happened? Was it just some charade? Something that wasn't real?
Why do you say that? Because I remember it was after that they placed a ban on entering forest reserves and all that, you know, and then there was Operation Halt Phase 2, Phase 3, there was also, you know, quite a number of things that they implemented afterwards.
All these ad hoc measures, which doesn't yield any results, are not what we want. We don't want unprofitable ventures as far as Galamsey is concerned. Galamsey is killing us. Look, Even look at the time we were using to discuss Aisha Huang. It is a complete waste of time because there are other issues, economic issues, social issues that we should look at.
But does this not affect the economic issues of the country, which is why we're talking about it?
I am saying that why Aisha Huang, we could have prevented Aisha Huang and whoever, and the Aisha Huangs, because she's not going to be the only person. What are we doing with the others? There are other people out there who are also engaged in this illegality. Is it going to deter them?
Certainly not.
Certainly not. If you jail a murderer, it doesn't mean that people will stop murdering. You have to get to the root cause. What is causing people to do galamsey? The catch. Unemployment. I even talked about the excavators. Who owns these excavators? I am not a lawyer, but there's something called evidence. Whoever owns that excavator has a name to it. It's registered in a name. So even if the person is not the one who is using it for the galamsey exercise, somebody rented it from him. So we have to get to the bottom by getting the owners of these excavators. Because you see, in the US, when you witness a murder and you don't report, you are complicit. So while the murderer gets life, you get 25 years. So whoever has rented these excavators is also complicit.
Oh, but Naya, what happened to those excavators?
But I also heard, that's what I'm coming to.
Public record.
Yes, because you see, I'm even hearing that those excavators are not even registered in any name. Yes. How did they enter this country?
Absolutely.
If they are not registered, how did they enter through the ports of Ghana?
And you remember the conversation about a government official who was even complicit, you remember?
Do you get me? So, I mean, if you burn the excavators, you are burning evidence. So if there's true commitment on the part of government, they will not burn one of the key evidential tools. And that is these excavators.
But even the burning in Naya, it has an impact even negatively on the same environment.
On the same environment, yes.
Exactly.
Because to burn these huge machines,
confiscate them and auction them off and use them for something. And look,
yes,
the bigger security threat is the threat to our water bodies.
Hold on, I'll let you come in. Let Naya please.
Do you get me? So all these excavators are also very evidential. They are bent. You bent evidence. Does it show commitment? How can you fight this one menace with different interventions? We have so many interventions under this government.
But is it because maybe we tried one, it didn't work? Are we not allowed to try a different intervention?
No, but are you always doing trial? Or if you go to your doctor and your doctor gives you paracetamol today, tomorrow he gives you Tylenol, today he gives you Anacin. So it means the doctor doesn't know what he is about. So then the doctor should now go and get help from another doctor. There is nothing wrong for the government to say that, okay, President Kufuor is alive. In his time, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
President Mills, unfortunately, is gone. But we have President Mahama, who was one of the people who was fighting the galamsey when he took office. So you find out. He's saying there's a blueprint. Let's all interrogate the blueprint. We should stop doing politics with galamsey. If truly there's a blueprint that was put together by Ghana, using Ghana's money, Ghana's resources, Ghana's brains to put it together as a policy document towards fighting galamsey, then it should be brought to the fore wherever it is hiding so that we all interrogate it and see if the interventions in there are good enough to help us fight galamsey.
But has government not done its part and expecting that citizens will do their part as well? And unfortunately, we're told that it's these same citizens who are aiding some of these illegal miners, which is why we're still where we are today.
Enforcement. The departments, agencies, there are laws in this country. Our laws do not work. The departments and agencies who are transferred or sent to these districts, EPA is there, Environmental Protection Agency, they are there. You see, governments and the people in Accra, that's why we have decentralization. The local government system should work in this case. The DC, the MC, all those people should make sure that these things don't work. And we have laws. That is why I'm saying that, Bella, whenever these things happen, there is always somebody behind the scenes who is the kingpin, the Don. I'm using street language. It's not English. The Don. When you find young armed robbers of 20 years, 16 years, they are not doing it. You have a dawn. So who are the dawns? That is, we have to tackle it from the dawns. Those who are the untouchables. That is why we should have evidence as to who owns what excavator. Then we will take this thing from there, the investigation from there. If we politicize Galamsey, we are in trouble. Because now where we are, if we are not careful, we will destroy everything. And once it is destroyed, we are gone. And you see, China, the way it is, we are talking about diplomatic relations, but when it comes to the other countries, the West, the East, they don't care about diplomatic relations. So when you come to their country to do what is not right, they will deal with you. Why are we allowing them to come and do what is not right here? Because you see, Africa, us, we hold the world. We have all the resources, and they don't want us to have it. So they will have a concerted effort to ensure that whatever we have, they degrade it, or they destroy it, or take it away. And we are looking on, government after government. I think that there should be a close-up period for mining in this country for a period of 3 years.
But we saw how, a will purported to belong to a former forestry commissioner was giving out lands that were supposed to be preserved, allegedly.
Yes.
So if the people who are in charge are the ones who are engaged in this, how are we going to stop this?
I said the dons.
How are we? No, but the dons are the ones who may be even in charge of, running the economy.
That is what I'm saying. So if we
how are they going to even prosecute themselves?
So we have to look at it so that when we investigate thoroughly, we will get to the bottom of it. If you have a sore, sometimes the sore is not, it is at the surface, but maybe there's an organ in your body that is not healing the sore. So we need to get to the bottom if we are really committed. Because if we really love this country, I always say that if you're a government, you need to love this country. Because you see, you come in as a custodian of the people, and you are a servant to the people. And so you do whatever the people want you to do in the right manner. So if the government is involved, maybe, I'm always saying that maybe we should have a system where we should have a committee of evaluators and monitors who are above the president, some system. Because as it stands now, who is looking after the state? Who is making sure that the state does the right thing? The government does the right thing. Bella, who? And when you read this constitution, they've put so much power in the hands of the president. So much executive power. So who is making sure that what is done? You see, we should have KPIs for every government. Bella, 2 years, when you come and you don't fulfill these KPIs, you should be taken off through a referendum.
Okay.
And another government should be brought on board.
That's all.
Seriously, we can't joke anymore.
So that would mean having to rework the constitution.
Yeah, we have to look at this constitution again. KPIs. Before you come in, the country will give you KPIs. We should also stop using manifestos to run this nation. We should have an economic development plan. If Party A comes and you get to page 3, Party B will come and continue to page 4. And the KPI should be based on the economic development plan. So if you are not able to, by the middle of two years, and we take and you are not on number 5, then it is you can't do the job, you are gone. Because it is getting out of hand. People think about how they will enrich themselves. It doesn't matter how they do it. It doesn't matter who gets hurt. It doesn't matter whether the country gets hurt or not. They continue doing it, and they continue destroying our nation.
Well, good morning to Dr. Stephen Amo. He was asking if there was an MPP rep that was invited. Yes, Elena Madeko was supposed to have been here this morning. We are not sure why she's not here. So the platform was given for someone from the NPP to also come and speak to these matters. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But we're discussing Aisha Huang and, of course, Galamsey in totality. Yesterday on Ghana Tonight, Lawyer Justice Abdullahi did say something about the charges that have been leveled against Aisha Huang. And he said that, in actual fact, he actually agrees when Lawyer Fadate says that this is a small matter, because if you look at the charges leveled against her, really, she's committed more crimes than the charges that are being leveled. And so, unfortunately, she might only get a fine, and that's the most we can even get out of this situation. Let's listen to him quickly, and I'll find out from Lawyer what she says about this.
Because it's a summary trial, it's just the judge alone. And so nobody assists the judge in making a decision And so she determines, or he determines at the end of the day, whether or not a good case has been made and whether or not the person, the accused person, be convicted. And so it's that difficult. Now, having said that, I entirely agree with Dara when he says that we should manage our expectations. And this is clearly because the government hasn't been forthright with this issue of Aisha Huang right from day one. And if you remember the comments made by your Safamafo and the issues surrounding those comments, it's very difficult. And in fact, the revelations made by Uncle Kwakubako to the effect that this lady has people in her pocket and recordings and other things, it's very difficult to really believe that something fruitful will come out of it. And this belief I hold, or conviction I hold, is even fortified with the kind of charge that she has been leveled, that has been leveled on her. With all the offenses that she's committed, from the readings that I have found, she's only been, I think, she's been slapped with just about 2 offenses.
Yes.
When you can count more than 5 different offenses that she's committed. And these offenses that without having to bust the bubbles, I have to inform you that indeed the offenses that she's been charged with are not offenses that she necessarily might even end up in prison, because they are finable offenses, if you will call it so. And in addition to that, the fines are so minimal that she literally may pay just about 40,000 cedis in cost, in fines, and walk free, unless something else happens. She may end up just paying about 40,000 cedis or thereabout, because the offenses that I have read that she's been charged with are not the kind of offenses that we would, for instance, expect.
And so that's why Lawyer Nkrabea Fadate says this is a small matter. I mean, that's how he put it, literally.
Indeed, he's
right.
A small matter. He is right when he says that, because the offenses that she's been charged with are so frivolous that we should as well just go to sleep, because really, at the end of the day, for a person who is engaged in the kind of activities that she's engaged in, getting 50,000 cedis or even 100,000 cedis is a peanut for her.
Lawyer, do you agree?
Well, I think he just buttresses the point that I made, that there is really a huge contradiction here that is President Akufo-Addo, that the whole system, even regarding whether there's this trial or not, is the same. A bag of contradictions. You get me? And there's just 2 counts. I mean, sometimes I don't even like to, dwell too much on these things. But I told you that from listening to my senior Nkrabea Fadate, whom I know is a very experienced practitioner, it's a very straightforward matter. But I haven't even thought about the fines, so how minimal or nominal they are. So certainly, we do have a challenge. And look, it is why I say that the president put his job on the line to fight Galamsey. He should have resigned.
He should have resigned?
Yes, because there really was never an intention so to do.
Would we not be the same ones calling him weak and someone who has failed for not staying on to fight further?
Even as he has remained in office, it is very obvious that he's become a very weak leader. Because for all the promises of fairness and discipline that he promised, which one of them has been consistent with his administration or governance style so far? Not one.
He says he gets briefings every morning.
Yes, and yet he's been misled. And he was misled on many other things. If you remember, on matters to do with graft and corruption, he was misled by his appointees. And of course, in the same vein, he grants an interview where his information minister, sometimes that's what I mean. Leaders should have a little bit of humility. If you're not sure, what's the big deal? Well, I can ask you for information. You probably are on the internet. You probably have your laptop in front of you. I can ask you a question, and you'd give me an answer. What does it take away from you? Better to state a wrong fact, but at least take a few minutes just to ask for some clarity or clarification. Look, I have no doubt in my mind that President Akufo-Addo is a walking bag of inconsistencies and of contradictions, that they know exactly what to do to stem Galamsey if there is the firm intention so to do. But it's a very lackluster, a very lukewarm approach. You understand? There's just no commitment to do so. In any case, who gives him the briefings? It's not you and I. It is not Nanaya Jantua. You understand? And like I said, look, it is very easy in this country, right, to find foreign criminals.
It is?
It is very, very easy.
How so?
Because they work through us. So there's always a native who speaks the language, who knows who has committed which crimes.
Yeah.
You know, I always tell people, even in the days when I was a very active practitioner, if I went into a community, I probably would not ask the actors that I'm dealing with. I'd ask probably the security man, the driver who gives you a lift.
The lift, yeah.
And then you pick up on not the real societal nuances and norms.
Yeah.
You understand, if you're a chief, you're a stakeholder, and you are really committed to fighting galamsey, for example, why not? You will find, look, in recent times, we've had little spats even from our palaces, from very important chiefs who have had issues with us who were in the secular environment. Have you seen the swiftness with which they deal with these matters? Look at the embarrassing matter that happened in the Upper West region, for example. In recent times, we've had the issues with I think, a radio station somewhere in the Ashanti region. Yeah. I wasn't here when that happened, but I followed up on that story. So if we genuinely want to fight galamsey, think about it.
We will.
We will.
Let's take a break at this point. And when we come back, we'll talk about the fact that transport fares may go up by some 30% effective September 2021. What do you make of that? On the back of the fact that sachet water has also increased. A bag of sachet water now will go for 9 cedis from the retail point. And the bottled water is also going to go up by some, pesos of cedis. We'll come back and talk about it. Keep watching. This is The Big Issue on TV3 Newday.